What's going on, guys? Zane here, back with another video. For this one, we're going to go over question number 20, which is the valid parentheses problem. So we're basically given a function here with a Boolean return type is valid, which means that if the string is valid, then we return true, otherwise we return false. The string is going to be valid if the opening brackets are closed by the same type of bracket, and the opening bracket must be closed in the correct order. So example 1, we have round and then an ending round. That's true. Round, ending round, square, ending square, curly, ending curly, true. Cool. But we have a round and then an ending square. These do not match, and therefore this is false. So to tackle this, what we'll do is we'll create a map and we'll instantiate it with our key value pair of the opening bracket and the closing bracket. So our key will be our opening bracket, and our ending bracket will be our value. Once we establish our map, we'll then create a stack and we'll check to see whether or not the character that we're at in our loop is going to be a opening bracket, closing bracket, and then we'll go from there. So let's first create our map. We'll do a map of a character and a character because we'll have the opening bracket and the closing bracket, and we're not talking about strings here. Even though we're being passed in a string, we're actually going to be taking each character from the string, and I'll show you how to do that. So we'll create a map of a character and a character. We'll call it map, and it'll be a map of, and then our key value pairs. So let's create that. Our first key is going to be the opening, and then the value of that is going to be the closing. Same thing for the other two types of brackets. So let me just do that real quick. Whoops, I accidentally ran that. Okay. Yikes. Okay, and let me just send this off with a semicolon, and let's bring these down a bit so we can easily read these. So we've created a map, and we've actually mapped what exactly we want inside of it. Now, let's create our stack. Stacks to me were such an enigma, and I thought, oh my god, what is a stack? Like, I'm trying to still understand what an array and the linked lists are, and stacks really are quite simple when it comes to visualizing. So let me just give you an example. If we were to push something to a stack, let me just finish the comment. If we push something to the stack, we'll simply add it to the top. And we can keep adding things. So let's just pretend this is our stack. It's literally just stacking data. We can push it, which is just pushing it to the bottom, or we can pop it, which is taking it from the top. But I'll get into that as well. But this is just an example of a stack in this situation. But anyway, let's go back into our program and let's actually create that stack. So we'll do a stack of type character, and we'll call this stack, and we'll just instantiate it to a new stack object. Now, let's go into our string and loop through every character. Now, we could do something like for every character, and we'll call it C, in the string, do something. But the issue here is that we're not actually able to do a character in a string here as is. But Java conveniently has a method that you can convert it to a char or char. I actually have no idea. Is it char? And you can just convert it to a char or a char array. And then once you do that, now you're basically looping through every character. Now, let's think about this. We're looping through every single character, and we need to do something with those characters. So maybe the first step is, let's see if the character that we're at is an opening bracket. And we can do that by basically seeing if the key exists. Because right now we're not concerned with the value. The keys are all opening brackets. So key value, key value, key value. So these are all the keys. And so basically, if the map has the key of the character that we're at right now in the loop, then that means it's an opening bracket. And if it is an opening bracket, let's push that to the stack. And the reason we're pushing it to the stack is because, okay, we're at an opening bracket. So meaning, all right, now our check is starting. All right, we're at the opening bracket. Now we have to make sure that the closing bracket occurs and it occurs in order. But for now, we're just pushing it to the stack so that we can reference it later on. So let's just assume something like this exists in the stack just now. So we just push this, just as an example. It depends on what the string was, but let's just say that was the opening bracket. So now, otherwise, what do? Well, if the stack now has that character in there, if this was triggered, then great. Otherwise, it's not in there, meaning that we're going to assume we're now at something where we're confirming whether or not the bracket is in there or not. So what we could do is you could use the pop method to grab the first item in our stack. And we can do that by first, let's instantiate a variable or a character variable. And we'll call this top of stack. Is going to equal the stack.pop. And what pop does here is it'll grab the first value in our stack, but also, and this is a very important distinction about stacks and popping, I guess, is that not only do you have this value, the top value, in a variable, but it's also removing it from the stack. And I think that's very important to understand. Not only do you have it now, but you're also removing it from the stack, so it no longer exists, which we could use to our advantage. The mechanic of this stack can be used to our advantage, because if we now pop it out of the stack and we do a check for it and everything's good to go, then technically we could use that to our advantage by being able to establish that the character has been dealt with. So like if we have an opening bracket and then we check that, and if that checks out, then we remove it, and now we can check the other brackets, so we don't have to worry about there being like overlap. But anyway, let's just pop it out for now and store it into our top of stack variable. And now let's do a check. So this top of stack is most likely going to push the opening bracket. So now we can say, if we get the value of the top of the stack. So what this is doing here is get returns the actual value of the key. So this is technically our key. So if we get the value of our key, meaning if it's one of these, and this value does not equal the character that we're at in the loop, then that means that we are at a mismatch. So we return false. It is not valid. The reason for that is if we've pushed something to the stack as an opening bracket, and then we get the value of that opening bracket, and that's not equal to C, well, that means that either A, the bracket is incorrect, or it's not in order. So we can just immediately return false. Now, otherwise, we're done with our for loop here. So we'll just let the program do its thing. And if it works out, great. Otherwise, we have to have a return value here, but what are we going to return? Well, we could just return true, but I personally went through this, and I mean, there was an issue and I understood why. So let me just actually run this code, see what the issue is. Let's actually submit it. So we have a wrong answer here, and let's take a look at why. I'm going to go into details, see if I can get anything here. Looks like we have 5 out of 91, so that's no good. So take a look over here. If we're going to be pushing something to the stack, otherwise we're going to be checking something from the stack. What if the stack was empty? So let's actually account for that. So let's do something like this. Instead of returning true, let's just return stack is empty. And the reason we're doing that is because, like I mentioned, we're using the mechanic of stacks to our advantage. So hypothetically, if we pop something out of the stack and then we do our check, it'll either return false or it'll continue going through the check to push and pop until we get to a point where the stack is completely empty, because we were able to push and pop everything in order and with the correct bracket. Meaning if the stack is empty, then all of the checks were valid, and therefore this string is valid in order with the same bracket. So we could just use that to our advantage. So let's run this. I'm going to submit this here. And we have an error here. So I'm actually glad this happened. If you take a look at the error, it says here empty stack exception, and it tells you exactly where the issue was. So if this was being pushed and then we're popping here, we're assuming that there's data in the stack. So what you could do here is you can just add a check where if the stack is empty in this area here, then just return false. Because at this point, we're still iterating, and if it's empty at this point, well, there's an issue, so let's just return false. So let's submit this. Looks like we're good to go. Anyway, just to recap, we used a map, we instantiated that. We're using a stack to kind of work with our map. We're going to loop through all the characters. We're then going to see, are we at an opening bracket? Then we push it to our stack. Otherwise, if we're not in an opening bracket, and if the stack is empty, return false. Otherwise, we're going to pop out our first value from the stack, store it into a variable, then check to see if the map has that value for that opening bracket inside of our loop. And if that value in our loop, or that character that we're at, is not equal to the value of the top of the stack, well, then we have a mismatch, and therefore we can return false. Otherwise, if everything went through, that means the stack should be empty, and therefore just return stack is true, or stack is empty. Anyways, guys, I think that's it for this one. If you guys have any questions, comments, feedback, or if I didn't make anything clear, please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, hit that like and subscribe button, show me some love, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.